Victoria Ashford was a smart and happy girl. She was only 12 years old, but she was already very good at many things. She could play the piano like a real musician. She could speak 3 languages, and she was the best student in her school. Her father was Marcus Ashford, one of the richest men in the world. He made his money by creating computer programs and technology that millions of people used every day. Her mother was Eleanor Ashford, a beautiful woman who loved her daughter very much. They lived in a big, expensive penthouse in Manhattan, a tall building with a view of the whole city. Everything in Victoria's life was perfect. She had everything she wanted. Her room was full of nice things. She had the best teachers, the best doctors, and the best of everything. Her parents loved her so much, and they wanted her to be happy and healthy. But on one day that started like any other day, everything changed. It was a beautiful Tuesday morning when Victoria was getting ready for her piano recital. This recital was very important because it was going to be at one of the most famous concert halls in New York City. Many people were going to come to watch her play, including newspaper people and important music teachers. Victoria had been practicing for many months. She was not nervous, she was excited. She put on a beautiful white dress that her mother bought for her. She looked like a princess. When Victoria sat down at the piano on the big stage, she felt happy. The stage lights were bright, and she could see her parents sitting in the front row. Her mother was smiling. Her father was holding a camera to take pictures. Victoria started to play a very difficult classical song. The music was beautiful. The people in the room were listening carefully. Everything was going perfectly, but in the middle of the song, something went wrong. Victoria suddenly felt very tired. Her head started to hurt. She felt dizzy and confused. She tried to keep playing, but her hands did not want to move anymore. The music stopped. The hall became very quiet. Her parents noticed right away that something was not okay. Her mother ran to the stage. Her father ran to the stage too. Victoria fell down. She could not move. She could not speak. Many people gasped in shock. The doctors who were in the audience ran to help her. An ambulance came very fast. The doctors put Victoria on a special bed with wheels. They took her to New York Presbyterian Hospital. It was a big, modern hospital with the best doctors and equipment. Victoria's parents went with her. They held her hand and told her that everything was going to be okay. But deep in their hearts, they were very worried at the hospital. Many doctors came to look at Victoria. They did many tests. They took blood from her arm. They took pictures inside her body with special machines. They checked her heart. They checked her lungs. They checked everything. Victoria was asleep because the doctors gave her medicine that made her sleep. This made everything easier. The doctors worked all night in the morning. The head doctor called Victoria's parents to his office. Marcus and Eleanor sat down. Their hearts were beating very fast. The doctor looked very serious. He said that Victoria had a very rare disease. It was called an autoimmune condition. This means that her own body was fighting against her heart. Her heart was getting weaker and weaker. The doctors tried to explain it in simple words, but it was still very confusing and scary. The doctor said something that made Eleanor start crying. He said that they had only 7 days to find a cure. 7 days before Victoria's heart would stop working completely. 7 days before she would die. Marcus could not believe it. He asked the doctor, "Are you sure? Can we try new medicine? Can we try operations? Can we bring other doctors to help?" The doctor nodded slowly. He said that doctors from all over the world were welcome to come. The best doctors from Switzerland, from Japan, from Germany, and from many other countries. But he said that he did not think it would help. He said that this disease was very difficult to cure. He said that they had never seen a case like this that got better. Eleanor was crying very hard. Marcus put his arm around her. He tried to be strong, but his eyes were also wet with tears. They went back to Victoria's room. She was still sleeping. She looked peaceful. Like nothing was wrong, but everything was wrong. Everything they had, all the money, all the power, all the love, could not save their daughter. For the first time in his life, Marcus Ashford felt like he had no power at all. The next day, news about Victoria's sickness spread everywhere. Newspapers wrote about the billionaire's sick daughter. People prayed for her in churches. The hospital became very busy with doctors trying to help. But no one had good news. No one knew how to save her. Victoria's mother sat next to her bed and held her hand. She remembered all the happy times, all the birthday parties, all the school days, all the piano lessons. She wondered if these memories were going to be all she would have. She wondered if she would never see her daughter grow up, never see her graduate from high school, never see her become a woman. The 7 days were ticking. 1 day had passed. Then 2 days, then 3 days, and Victoria was getting weaker. Not stronger, no medicine was working. No treatment was helping. The doctors shook their heads. The parents waited and prayed, and the girl who had everything could not get the one thing that mattered most. More time. The Ashford family was living in a dark cloud of sadness. Victoria was still in the hospital, lying in her bed and not moving much. The doctor said she had only a few days left. Maybe 4 days, maybe 5 days, nobody knew for sure. Marcus and Eleanor barely slept. They sat next to Victoria's bed all day and all night. They held her hand and whispered prayers. They did not talk much to each other because there was nothing good to say. The big penthouse in Manhattan felt empty and cold. There were no workers there to clean or cook. Eleanor had told everyone to go home. She said she did not want anyone in the house right now. She did not want anyone to see her sadness. She did not want anyone to talk to her. So the penthouse sat quiet and dirty. Dishes were in the sink. Clothes were on the floor. Nobody cared about these things anymore. But then something unexpected happened. On the 4th day after Victoria got sick, the phone rang at the Ashford house. It was a woman from the cleaning and housekeeping company. Her name was Mrs. Johnson. She said that she was calling to ask if the Ashfords needed help. She said that she had heard about Victoria, and she was very sorry. She said that she had a woman who could come and help them. She said this woman was very good at her job, and very kind and very strong. She said the woman could cook, clean, and take care of the house so that Marcus and Eleanor could focus on Victoria. Marcus did not want to say yes at first. He said that he did not want any strangers in his house. He said that he wanted to be alone with his family. But Mrs. Johnson said that the house needed care. She said that someone needed to cook healthy food for Marcus and Eleanor. She said that they needed to eat to keep their strength. She said that someone needed to clean so that the penthouse did not become a place of dirt and sadness. Finally, Marcus agreed. He said that the woman could come for 1 week, just 1 week to help them. The next morning, a woman came to the door of the penthouse. Her name was Grace Williams. She was 58 years old. She was from Jamaica, a beautiful island in the Caribbean Sea. Grace was not tall, but she stood very straight, like she had something strong inside her. She had kind eyes and a warm smile, even though she was tired from her long journey to the penthouse. She smiled when Marcus opened the door. Grace carried only a small duffel bag with her, a blue bag that was old and worn. Inside the bag were her clothes, her shoes, and a well-read Bible. The Bible was very old, with pages that were yellow and bent from being read many times. Grace told Marcus that she did not need much. She said that she was used to working hard. She said that she was used to helping people. She said that she would do her best to help his family. Marcus showed Grace around the big penthouse. It was very fancy and very expensive. There were gold decorations on the walls. There were paintings that cost more money than most people make in a year. There were soft carpets and big windows with a view of the whole city. But even with all these beautiful and expensive things, the penthouse felt sad and empty. Grace looked around quietly. She did not say, "Wow," or "This is so nice." Instead, she just nodded and said, "I see." When Grace saw Eleanor for the first time, Eleanor was sitting next to Victoria's bed in the hospital room that the Ashfords had made in their penthouse. Eleanor looked like she had not slept in days. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were red from crying. She looked like a woman who had lost all hope. Grace walked over to her slowly. She put her hand on Eleanor's shoulder and said, "My name is Grace. I am here to help you." Eleanor did not even look up. She just kept staring at Victoria, who was sleeping. Then Grace went to Victoria's room. She looked at the young girl in the bed. She saw the machines that went beep, beep, beep. She saw the tubes connected to Victoria's arms. She saw a young girl who looked so small and so sick. And something changed in Grace's eyes. It was like a light turned on inside her, a light that was very bright and very strong. Grace asked Eleanor if she could sit with Victoria during her breaks from work. She said she would like to read to Victoria, or just sit next to her. Eleanor thought it was strange. She did not know why this stranger wanted to spend time with her daughter, but she was too tired to argue. She said yes, Grace could sit with Victoria. That first day, Grace cleaned the whole penthouse. She cooked a healthy dinner for Marcus and Eleanor. She made soup with vegetables and chicken. She made bread, she made tea. The smell of the food filled the empty house with something warm and alive. When Marcus and Eleanor sat down to eat, they felt something they had not felt in days. They felt a small bit of comfort. They felt like maybe, just maybe, someone cared about them, and that night, Grace sat next to Victoria's bed. She held the girl's small hand. She whispered prayers from her Bible. She whispered in a soft voice, like she was talking to someone very close to her heart. And Grace began to wait. She began to hope. She began to believe that maybe miracles were still possible. Grace started her work at the Ashford penthouse early in the morning. She would wake up at 5 o'clock. Even though nobody asked her to wake up so early, she would make tea and coffee. She would prepare breakfast with fresh fruit and eggs. She would clean the kitchen quietly so that Marcus and Eleanor could sleep a little bit more. But her real work, the work that mattered most to her, happened in Victoria's room every day, during her lunch break and after her work was done. Grace would go to Victoria's room. She would knock softly on the door, even though Victoria could not hear her. Then she would sit down next to the girl's bed. She would pull her chair very close. She would take Victoria's small hand in her own warm hand, and she would start to talk. She talked about many things. She talked about her life in Jamaica, about the beautiful beaches and the green mountains. She talked about her mother, who was very wise. She talked about her own daughter, the one who had died many years ago. Grace did not talk in a sad voice when she told these stories. Instead, she talked like she was sharing secrets with a good friend. She talked like Victoria could hear every word. Like Victoria was really listening, she would say, "Victoria, my child, I want to tell you about my home in Jamaica. The sun is so hot and so bright that it makes the ocean look like blue glass. The people there know how to live with joy even when life is hard. They know how to dance and sing and laugh. Do you know how to dance, Victoria? I think you do. I think you are the kind of girl who knows how to find happiness every day." Grace would read to Victoria from her old Bible. She would read stories about people who survived impossible things. She read about a man named Jonah who was swallowed by a big fish but lived. She read about a woman named Esther who saved her whole people when nobody thought she could. She read about a boy named David who fought a giant with just a stone. She read these stories in her Jamaican accent, and her voice was soft and warm, like honey, even though Victoria was asleep. Even though the doctors said she could not hear anything, Grace believed that somehow her words were reaching Victoria's heart. The hospital staff noticed Grace very quickly. At first, they were not happy about her being there. A nurse named Susan told her that visitors were not allowed in the hospital room for so long. She said that only family members could visit, and only for short times, but Grace just smiled and said, "I am here to help this family. I am not here to hurt anyone. I am just sitting and talking. Is that so wrong?" Susan did not know what to say. She went to talk to the doctor when the doctor came. He was ready to tell Grace to leave. But then something happened. He looked at Victoria's monitor, the machine that showed her heart beating. He saw something strange when Grace was in the room. Victoria's heart was more calm. It was not jumping around like it was when other people were there. It was beating steady and strong. The doctor looked surprised. He said to Grace, "What are you doing?" Grace just smiled and said, "I am loving her." That is all. After that, the doctors allowed Grace to stay. They became curious about what she was doing. Some of them would stand outside Victoria's room and watch. They watched as Grace massaged Victoria's hands and feet very gently. She used special massage movements that she had learned from an old woman in Jamaica. The old woman had learned these movements from her grandmother, who had learned them from Africa many, many years ago. Grace would massage Victoria's hands for 10 minutes, then her feet, then her arms. She would move her fingers in circles, very slowly and very carefully. One doctor asked Grace why she was doing this. Grace said, "The body wants to heal. The body has power inside it. But sometimes the body needs to know that someone cares. The body needs to feel love and warmth. When I touch her like this, I am telling her body that she is not alone. I am telling her body that there is someone here who believes she will get better." Grace also brought special teas that she made herself. She brought tea made from ginger and honey. She brought tea made from plants that grew in the Caribbean. She brought tea made from things that her grandmother used long ago. The doctors were not sure about these teas at first. But they let Grace give them to Victoria through a small tube in her nose, and slowly, very slowly, something started to change. On the 5th day, Victoria's blood work showed something that shocked everyone. There was improvement. Not much improvement, but improvement. The bad things in Victoria's blood were getting smaller. The good things were getting bigger. The doctors looked at each other with confusion and hope. They did not know how this was possible. They looked at Grace, who was sitting next to Victoria with a peaceful smile on her face. They could not explain it, but they could not deny it. Eleanor started to notice changes too. She started to sit next to Grace during her visits to Victoria's room. At first, Eleanor just watched. Then she started to listen to Grace's stories. Then she started to believe. She started to believe that maybe this woman with the kind eyes and the warm smile knew something that the fancy doctors did not know. She started to believe in hope again, and for the first time in many days, Eleanor smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. By the 5th day, the situation in the hospital had become very serious. Victoria was supposed to die soon. The doctors had told Marcus and Eleanor that they should prepare themselves for the worst. They had even started to talk about funeral arrangements, about what kind of music Victoria would like, about where she would be buried. It was the most painful conversation that any parent could ever have. But something strange was happening. Something that the doctors could not explain. The machines in Victoria's room were showing different numbers than before. The numbers were getting better. Not much better, but better. The doctor named Richard, who was the head of Victoria's medical team, was very confused. He kept checking the machines. He kept checking Victoria's blood work. He kept reading the reports again and again. He would shake his head and say, "I do not understand this. This should not be happening." Grace was there every single day. She did not take any days off. She did not go home to rest. She stayed in the penthouse at night, and she stayed at the hospital during the day. She was with Victoria almost every hour. The nurses started to notice that Grace had a special way with Victoria. When Grace was not there, Victoria's body seemed to get weaker. Her heart would beat faster and more irregular. She would seem uncomfortable. But when Grace came back, Victoria would calm down. Her heart would slow down. She would seem more peaceful. One morning on the 6th day, something amazing happened. Victoria's eyes started to move under her closed eyelids. This was a good sign. The doctors said that this meant her brain was waking up. Her mind was coming back to life. Grace was there when it happened. She was sitting next to Victoria, holding her hand and telling her another story about Jamaica. She was telling Victoria about a time when she almost drowned in the ocean, about how the waves were so big and so strong, about how she thought she was going to die. But then a fisherman came and saved her. He pulled her out of the water and brought her back to the beach. Grace said, "Victoria, my child, I survived the ocean, and you are going to survive this sickness, do you hear me? You are going to be okay." And then something incredible happened. Victoria's eyes opened, not all the way, just a little bit, but they opened. Grace gasped. She jumped up and ran to get the doctors. The doctors came running. They could not believe it. They checked all the machines. They looked at Victoria's eyes. They said, "Her eyes are open. Her eyes are really open." Over the next 2 days, Victoria started to wake up more and more. Her eyes would open for longer times. She would move her fingers and her toes. She would try to move her head. She was coming back from a very far-away place. The doctors said it was like watching a person wake up from a very deep sleep. And through all of this, Grace was there, always holding Victoria's hand, always talking to her, always believing. On the 7th day, the day that the doctors said Victoria would die, something impossible happened. Victoria opened her eyes fully. She looked around the room. She saw Grace sitting next to her, and she did something that made everyone cry with happiness. She squeezed Grace's hand, not a strong squeeze, because Victoria was still very weak, but a real squeeze. Victoria was communicating. Victoria was alive, and then on that same day, Victoria did something even more amazing. She tried to talk. Her voice was very quiet and very weak, like the sound of wind through leaves, but she spoke. She said one word, just one word, but it was the most beautiful word that anyone had ever heard. She said, "Grace." When Victoria said Grace's name, Grace started to cry. Big tears ran down her face. She held Victoria's hand very carefully, like it was the most precious thing in the world. She said, "Yes, baby, yes, I am here. I am right here with you." The doctors came running. They could not believe what they were hearing. They checked Victoria's heart. They checked her breathing, they checked everything. All the numbers were improving. All the machines showed that Victoria was getting stronger. The doctor named Richard came to Marcus and Eleanor and said, "I do not know how to explain this in all my years as a doctor. I have never seen anything like this. Your daughter is recovering, she should not be recovering." "But she is," Marcus and Eleanor held each other and cried. But this time they were not crying from sadness. They were crying from joy. They were crying because their daughter was alive. She was coming back to them. She was going to live. Grace sat next to Victoria through the whole night. She did not sleep. She just sat there and watched Victoria breathe. She watched Victoria's chest go up and down, up and down. She watched the monitors show that Victoria's heart was beating stronger and stronger. And Grace whispered prayers of thanks. She thanked God for giving her a second chance, a chance to save a child. A chance to do the thing that she could not do for her own daughter. A chance to show that love and faith and hope could do impossible things. The news of Victoria's recovery spread through the hospital like a fast wind. Doctors and nurses who had given up hope came to see her. They came to see the girl who was supposed to die, but who was now getting stronger every single day. The medical team could not explain what was happening, but they could not deny that it was real. Every blood test showed improvement. Every monitor showed that Victoria's heart was getting healthier and healthier. By the 8th day, Victoria could keep her eyes open for hours. She could move her arms and her legs. She could smile when she smiled. It was the most beautiful smile that anyone had ever seen. It was the smile of a person who had been given a second chance at life. Marcus and Eleanor sat next to her bed and cried happy tears. They held each other and held their daughter. They whispered thank you again and again. They thanked God, they thanked the doctors. But most of all, they thanked Grace. Grace never took credit for what was happening. When the doctors asked her how she knew what to do, she would just smile and say,
"I did not know anything, I just loved her."
Love is the most powerful medicine in the world. The doctors did not know what to make of this answer. They were scientists. They believed in facts and numbers and machines. But they could not argue with what they were seeing with their own eyes. Victoria was alive and she was getting stronger. On the 10th day, Victoria could sit up in bed. The doctors helped her and she moved very slowly. Because her body was still very weak, but she did it. She sat up and looked out the window at the city below. She could see the buildings and the streets and the cars. She could see the life of the world that she had almost left behind. Grace was there, standing next to her, with one hand on her back to help keep her steady. Victoria turned to Grace and said, "Thank you, Grace. Thank you for saving me." Grace smiled and said, "You saved yourself, baby. Your strong body saved itself. I just helped you remember that you wanted to live." The hospital staff became very interested in Grace and her methods. Some of the doctors asked her to teach them what she was doing. Grace showed them the massage techniques. She explained about the special herbs and teas. She talked about the power of talking and reading and believing. One young doctor named Sarah asked Grace if she had studied medicine. Grace laughed and said, "I studied life. I studied my grandmother. I studied my own pain and I studied love. These things taught me more than any book could." News reporters came to the hospital. They wanted to write about the miracle. They wanted to know about the girl who survived and the woman who helped her. The story started to appear in newspapers and on television. People around the world started to hear about Victoria and Grace. Some people said it was a miracle. Some people said it was just good medical care. Some people said it was the power of love. But everyone agreed that it was something special, something that did not happen every day. On the 12th day, Victoria could eat real food. The doctors brought her soup and bread and fruit. She ate slowly, because her stomach had not had real food for a long time, but she ate, and with every bite she got stronger. Grace sat across from her and told her funny stories. She made Victoria laugh, and laughing made Victoria cough. But the doctor said that coughing was good. It meant her lungs were working harder. Eleanor came to Grace one afternoon and held her hands. Eleanor's eyes were red from crying, but this time she was crying happy tears. She said, "Grace, I do not know how to thank you. You saved my daughter's life. You gave me back my daughter. I do not have the words." Grace hugged Eleanor and said, "Do not thank me, thank God, and thank your beautiful daughter. She wanted to live, and that is why she lived. I just helped her remember that she was stronger than her sickness." Marcus came to Grace too. He was a man who was used to buying everything he wanted, but he could not buy what Grace had given him. He could not buy a second chance at his daughter's life. He offered Grace a lot of money. He said, "Name any price, anything you want. I will give it to you." But Grace refused. She said, "I do not want your money. I want to stay and help Victoria get all the way better. That is all I want." By the end of the second week, Victoria was strong enough to walk. The doctors helped her stand up, and she took slow steps across the hospital room. Grace walked beside her, holding her hand, one step, then another step, then another step. With every step, Victoria was walking back into her life. She was walking back into the future that the doctors said she would never have. The doctors called a meeting with Marcus and Eleanor. The head doctor named Richard said, "I have never seen a recovery like this in my 30 years of being a doctor. Your daughter should not be alive, but she is alive, and she is getting healthier every day. It is truly a miracle." Marcus asked the doctor, "What do you think Grace did?" The doctor thought for a long time, then he said, "I think she did something that we doctors cannot do with our machines and our medicine. I think she gave your daughter a reason to live. I think she gave her love and hope and belief, and somehow that was stronger than the sickness." 3 weeks after the doctor said Victoria had only 7 days to live, she walked out of the hospital. She did not leave in a wheelchair. She did not leave in a hospital bed. She walked out on her own 2 feet, holding her mother's hand on one side and Grace's hand on the other side. The hospital staff lined up in the hallways to say goodbye. They clapped and cheered. Many of them had tears in their eyes. They had watched something impossible happen. They had watched a miracle unfold before their eyes. The ride home in the car was quiet and peaceful. Victoria looked out the window at the city. She saw the streets and the buildings and the people walking. Everything looked so beautiful to her, because she had almost never seen it again. Marcus sat in the front seat, and every few minutes, he would turn around and look at his daughter, like he could not believe that she was really there, really alive, really going to come home. When they arrived at the penthouse, Victoria went straight to her room. Her room was exactly the same as she had left it. Her piano was still there, her books were still there, her teddy bears were still sitting on her bed. But Victoria was not the same. She had changed. She had seen how close she had come to death, and it had changed something inside her. She was quieter now, more thoughtful, more grateful for every single day for the next 2 months. Victoria's recovery was slow but steady. Every day she got a little bit stronger. Every day she could do a little bit more at first. She could only walk around her room. Then she could walk down the hallway. Then she could walk to the living room and sit in the big comfortable chair and look at the city. Grace was always with her, helping her, encouraging her, telling her stories, making her laugh. The doctors came to the penthouse to check on Victoria every week. They would do tests and check her heart and listen to her breathing. Every time they came, they were amazed by how well she was doing. The head doctor named Richard said to Marcus, "Your daughter's recovery is remarkable. I have never seen anything like it. Her heart is getting stronger every day. Her blood is getting cleaner every day. By all medical standards, this should not be possible, but it is happening." Victoria started to ask Grace questions about her life, about her family, about how she learned to do all these things. Grace told her about her childhood in Jamaica, about her mother who was a healer, about her grandmother who knew about plants and herbs, about how she came to America with nothing but hope and a dream. Victoria listened to every word. She understood that Grace had experienced hard times too, but she had kept going. She had kept believing. She had kept loving. One day, Victoria asked Grace if she could learn the massage techniques that Grace used. Grace smiled and said, "Of course, baby, I will teach you everything." So Victoria and Grace sat together, and Grace showed Victoria how to massage her own hands, how to move her fingers in circles, how to feel the energy moving through her body. Victoria learned about the special herbs and teas. She learned about the breathing exercises. She learned about the power of positive thinking and positive speaking. By the end of 2 months, Victoria could go back to school. She went to her school for just 2 hours at first, then 4 hours, then a full day. Her classmates were shocked to see her. They knew she had been very sick, but they did not know how close she had come to dying. When Victoria walked into the classroom, everyone clapped, her teachers hugged her. Her friends hugged her. It felt like she was being born again. Victoria's teachers noticed something different about her. She was more serious about her schoolwork, more kind to other students, more appreciative of every day. She was not the same girl who had gone to the hospital 3 months ago. She was a new girl, A girl who understood the value of life. A girl who had been given a second chance after 3 months. Victoria was strong enough to play the piano again. The first time she sat down at the piano and played, Grace listened from the next room when Victoria finished. Grace came in and hugged her, and they both cried. Because they knew what this meant. It meant that Victoria's life had truly come back. It meant that the girl who was supposed to die was now living, really living. Marcus decided to celebrate Victoria's recovery with a big party. He invited doctors and nurses from the hospital. He invited Victoria's teachers and friends. He invited the workers from the penthouse, but most importantly, he made sure that Grace was the guest of honor at the party. Marcus stood up and spoke to everyone. He said, "Today we celebrate my daughter's life. We celebrate the fact that she is here with us. We celebrate the miracle that happened. And we celebrate the woman who made it possible. Grace Williams, please stand up." Grace stood up, and everyone in the room stood up and clapped and cheered. Marcus said, "Grace, you came to us as a stranger, but you became part of our family. You gave us our daughter back. You showed us that love and faith and hope are more powerful than any sickness. We can never thank you enough, we can never repay you, but we can tell you that you will always have a home here with us." Always, Grace cried, and Eleanor cried, and Victoria cried, and many other people cried, because everyone understood that they had witnessed something true and something real. They had witnessed the power of one person's love changing everything. They had witnessed a miracle that could not be explained by science or medicine, but could only be explained by love. 6 months after Victoria came home from the hospital, the Ashford family decided to have a special dinner. It was a quiet dinner. Just Marcus, Eleanor, Victoria, and Grace. They sat around the big dining table in the penthouse, and Eleanor had cooked all of Grace's favorite foods. There was rice and beans, there was fish cooked with coconut milk, there was plantains fried golden and sweet, there was tropical fruit for dessert. Everything tasted like home, like Jamaica, like love. During the dinner, Victoria asked Grace a question that she had been thinking about for a long time. She said, "Grace, why did you care about me so much? Why did you spend every day with me? Why did you give up everything to help me?" Grace put down her fork. She looked at Victoria for a long time, like she was deciding whether to tell her something very important. Finally, Grace said, "Victoria, I need to tell you something. I need to tell you a story that I have never told anyone in America. A story about my past, about why I came to this country, about why I knew exactly what to do when I saw you in that hospital bed." Everyone stopped eating. They all looked at Grace, waiting to hear what she was going to say. Grace took a deep breath and she began to tell her story. She said, 15 years ago, I had a daughter. Her name was Sophia. She was a beautiful girl, just like you, Victoria. She was smart and kind and full of life. When Sophia was 13 years old, she got sick at first. We thought it was just a cold, but it was not a cold. It was the same sickness that you had, Victoria. The same rare disease that attacks the heart. Grace paused, and her eyes filled with tears. She continued, "In Jamaica, we did not have the doctors that you have here. We did not have the hospitals with all the machines and the technology. We did not have the money to travel to America for treatment. I tried everything. I used all the herbs that I knew. I massaged her every day. I prayed every night. But Sophia was getting weaker and weaker, and after only 2 weeks she died," Eleanor gasped. She reached over and held Grace's hand. Victoria's eyes filled with tears too. She understood now. She understood why Grace had cared so much. She understood why Grace had never left her side. Grace continued, "After Sophia died, I was so broken. I did not want to live. I did not want to get up in the morning. I did not want to eat. I did not want to do anything for 5 years. I was like a ghost. I was alive, but I was not really living. But then I decided that I could not let Sophia's death be for nothing. I decided that I would come to America. I decided that I would learn everything I could about this sickness. I decided that maybe, someday, I could help another family. I could save another child. I could do for someone else what I could not do for my own daughter." Grace wiped her eyes and continued, "So I came to America. I got a job as a nurse's aide in a hospital in Brooklyn. I worked there for 10 years. I learned everything about medicine and healing. I learned about the sickness that killed my daughter. I studied it, I read about it, I talked to doctors about it. I learned about alternative medicine. I learned about herbs and massage and the power of the mind. All the time I was waiting. I was waiting for a chance to use what I had learned. I was waiting for an opportunity to save a child. Grace looked directly at Victoria and said, and then one day the agency called me. They said that they had a job for me. They said that a family needed a housekeeper. I did not think much about it at first. But when I got to the penthouse and I heard about you, Victoria, when I saw your picture, something inside me knew. I knew that this was my chance. I knew that God had sent me to you. I knew that I could not let this happen to another family. I could not let another mother lose her child like I lost Sophia. Marcus stood up. He walked over to Grace and hugged her. He said, Grace, you did not just help Victoria. You helped us understand what is really important in life. You showed us that love is more powerful than money. You showed us that one person can make a difference. Eleanor hugged Grace too, and Victoria came around the table and held her. The three of them stood together holding each other, and Grace said, I did not save Victoria's life. Victoria saved her own life, but I believe that Sophia helped. I believe that my daughter was watching over Victoria. I believe that our two daughters, separated by oceans and years, became connected through love, and that love was powerful enough to create a miracle. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Victoria went to her computer and started to research the rare disease that had almost killed her. She started to write down information. She started to make plans. She thought about her life and about how close she had come to losing it. She thought about Sophia, a girl she had never met, but who had somehow saved her life, and she made a decision that would change the rest of her life. The next morning, Victoria told her parents and Grace about her decision. She said, I want to become a doctor. I want to study this disease. I want to help other children like me. I want to help other families like ours. I want to make Sophia's life mean something. I want to turn this pain into something good. Marcus and Eleanor looked at each other, and they smiled. They knew that their daughter had grown up, that she had become wise, that she had understood the true meaning of what had happened to her. And Grace smiled too, because she knew that Sophia was smiling down from heaven, because she knew that from pain and loss, something beautiful was being born. 1 year after Victoria's recovery, Marcus made a big announcement. He called a press conference at the hospital where Victoria had almost died. He stood in front of many cameras and many reporters, and he said something that shocked everyone. He said, I am creating a foundation. It is called the Grace Williams Foundation. I am putting $50 million into this foundation. All the money will be used to help children who have the same rare disease that almost took my daughter's life. The reporters started asking questions. They wanted to know why Marcus was doing this. They wanted to know about Grace. They wanted to know about the miracle. Marcus told them the whole story. He told them about how Victoria was supposed to die. He told them about how Grace came and saved her. He told them about how Grace had lost her own daughter to the same disease 15 years ago. He told them about how one woman's love and determination had created a miracle. Grace stood next to Marcus during the press conference. She felt very shy. She did not like all the attention, but she understood that it was important. She understood that her story, and Sophia's story, could help other families. When the reporters asked her questions, Grace spoke quietly and humbly. She said, I did not do anything special. I just loved a child. I just believed that she could live. I just remembered what my grandmother taught me. Love is the best medicine, and faith can move mountains. The Grace Williams Foundation started its work immediately. The first thing the foundation did was hire doctors and researchers to study the rare disease. The foundation gave money to hospitals so they could buy better machines and better equipment to diagnose and treat the disease. The foundation gave money to poor families so their children could travel to America for treatment. The foundation trained nurses and doctors in alternative healing methods, combining modern medicine with traditional herbs and massage techniques. Just like Grace had done, Grace became the heart and soul of the foundation. She trained new caregivers. She taught them how to massage and how to use special herbs. She taught them how to talk to sick children, how to give them hope, how to make them believe that they could get better. She traveled to hospitals around the world. She sat with sick children and their families. She used what she had learned from her pain and from her love to help others. Victoria worked closely with the foundation too. She went to college and studied biology and medicine. She was the best student in her classes. Her teachers said that she had a special gift, a special understanding of the human body and the human spirit. Victoria wanted to become a doctor. But she also wanted to work with her father and Grace to help other children. She gave speeches at hospitals and schools. She told her own story. She told about how close she came to death. She told about how Grace saved her. She told about how one person's love can change everything. 2 years after the foundation was created, something wonderful happened. A 5-year-old boy named Marcus Jr., who had the same rare disease as Victoria, was brought to the hospital. The doctors said he had only 7 days to live. His parents were heartbroken, but then the Grace Williams Foundation sent one of their trained caregivers to help. The caregiver used all the techniques that Grace had taught: the massage, the herbs, the positive thinking, the power of love and belief. After 10 days, the boy started to get better. He survived. He became the second child saved by the foundation's methods. After that, more children started to survive. Some survived because of the new medicines that the foundation's researchers developed. Some survived because of the combination of modern medicine and traditional healing. Some survived because of the hope and love and belief that the foundation's workers brought into their hospital rooms. Within 5 years, the Grace Williams Foundation had helped 17 children survive the rare disease. 17 children who should have died, but who lived because of Grace's love and determination. The foundation also built a special hospital wing dedicated to treating this disease. It was called the Sophia Wing, named after Grace's daughter who had died so many years ago. The Sophia Wing was not like other hospital wings. It had soft lights and comfortable chairs. It had gardens where children could sit and look at flowers. It had rooms where families could stay together. It had areas where Grace and her trained caregivers could massage the children and give them herbs and teach them to believe in their own healing power. Victoria graduated from college and went to medical school. She became a doctor. She specialized in pediatric cardiology. She worked at the Sophia Wing. She used both modern medicine and the traditional methods that Grace had taught her. She was exactly the kind of doctor that the world needed, a doctor who understood that healing is not just about machines and medicines. It is about love and hope and belief. Marcus and Eleanor became grandparents. Victoria had children of her own, and Grace was like a grandmother to them. Grace was now 75 years old, but she still worked at the foundation. She still trained caregivers. She still sat with sick children. She still told her stories. She still believed in miracles. On the 10th anniversary of Victoria's recovery, the hospital held a big celebration. They invited all the doctors, all the nurses, all the children who had been saved by the foundation. They invited all the families. They invited reporters and important people from the government. Marcus and Eleanor stood together. Victoria stood with her own children, and Grace stood in the middle of them all, surrounded by the people whose lives she had touched. The head doctor, named Richard, who was now retired, came to the celebration. He stood up and said, "10 years ago, I did not believe in miracles. I believed only in science and medicine. But I was wrong. I have learned that miracles are real. I have learned that love is real. I have learned that one person's faith and determination can change the world. The Grace Williams Foundation is proof of that. Victoria Ashford is proof of that. And Grace Williams is proof of that." And as the celebration continued, with music and dancing and laughter and tears of joy, Victoria thought about her life, about how close she came to death, about how a stranger became family, about how pain was turned into purpose, about how Sophia's memory lived on in every child that was saved, about how one person with nothing but love and faith had changed everything.